Sea of Thieves needs PvE servers. A controversial topic commonly discussed amongst the community. A reality wherein the existence of servers without PvP is argued to be beneficial. In order for you to understand this proposition of how a world without PvP would be good and where it came from, we need to rewind to the beginning of the fabled Reaper's Bones. The Ships of Fortune update back in April 2020 saw a plethora of new features brought into the game, namely emissaries and an, at the time, amazing new company. The Reaper's Bones. Emissaries being the ability to represent a company on your sleeve, earning free cosmetics, boosted reputation gain, and insane amounts of extra gold. And the Reaper's Bones being advertised as this cartel of blood-shedding barbarians, wanting nothing but the head of other companies' emissaries. This attempt at livening up the seas with sounds of cannon fire, blunderbombs, and racial slurs from 14-year-olds worked, and so we entered the era of the Reapers. As with most Sea of Thieves updates, this era only lasted a month. But for this next month, there would be nothing but fighting non-stop. People had achieved what they wanted to. They had spent all their gold and they were simply looking to enjoy the new update and rewards for killing people, all the while earning excess gold from the people who still weren't interested in PvPing, or the Reapers for that matter, and wanted to continue leveling their other companies. This all came to a halting stop the very next update, with the introduction of Flameheart's World Event, an insane excursion in which you could earn an easy 200,000 gold for an hour's work, as well as having to grind 50 of these events to unlock an exclusive set of sails. So the grind was back on, and PvP had fizzled out. Reapers was now being abused as a PvE gold farming fleshlight, since your Reaper's Bones emissary reputation would level up from touching all loot, not just enemy loot. And people figured that out. That you could just abuse the world events and level up your Reapers to grade 5 and earn insane amount of gold for as long as you were willing to play. Every single update after this pushed the game further and further away from PvP. Additions of new world events, new company voyages, new ways to earn gold, tall tales, commendations, and even events involving alliances. It's fair to argue that the idea of PvP has almost been discouraged by Rare since the update of April 2020, with their continuous neglect and focus on storytelling and community bonding, failing to show or mention any word of PvP in their content trailers, almost giving a false advertisement of a co-op story game to any fresh audience. This idea is then reinforced by their removal of Arena, their PvP game mode, in March 2020. Yes, Rare has had 3 events which could be argued as being PvP focused. Reapers vs. the World, where you had to hand in 20 emissary flags. Reapers vs. Hoarders, which would reward you with extra gold for selling Gold Hoarder emissary flags. And finally, the Reapers Rewards event, which involved selling 10 emissary flags and all you got was an emote. This is 3 events out of the 37 events since the Reaper's introduction into the game, involving selling flags which don't even necessarily require PvP to be involved. An alliance can easily just swap flags by scuttling at the end of their grade 5. And so it's easy to understand where this notion of Sea of Thieves needs PvE servers has come from, with Sea of Thieves hitting 2 different milestones after the era of the Reapers, being its Steam launch and going from 10 million players to well over 25 million players, with all of those players being brought in from advertisements and content updates which don't involve PvP or even acknowledge its existence. So when new players come to encounter the 10% that do want to fight and steal your loot, it's a shock. They weren't prepared for it. There aren't any time-friendly ways to encounter PvP. You have to let it come to you after you've spent hours doing voyages, just to be a relatively new player who's unaware that PvP even really exists, just to sync immediately to the player who's spent much longer playing than you. Or you are the new player hunting people and have little success, making 0 gold and killing no one. You may have noticed throughout this video, gold is mentioned very often. Sea of Thieves' only reward is gold and cosmetics, of which 90% are only earned through having the required amount of money to purchase. To reinforce the idea that gold is the only thing worth working for, a couple months later at the beginning of Season 1, in January 2021, the Dark Adventurer cosmetics were added. These are the most expensive cosmetics in the game, requiring Pirate Legend and an abundance of gold. This puts almost no value of PvPing onto any new players. If they are unsuccessful at stealing loot, they earn no gold and have no fun. No gold equals no cosmetics, which equals no progression, and no progression to the majority of people is boring. This often leads to the idea that PvP should be toggleable, so players can progress in their lonesome, grinding as many hours as they want, with the only threat being themselves and AI enemies. Now that we understand where this idea of PvE servers has come from, we can get into the thick of it, and discuss whether or not they would be a good addition. The common argument is that PvE servers would be beneficial because it would allow people to casually play the game, learn the game, and make progression in an easy way, which in reality is a fair argument. Being dropped into a swimming pool with little guidance or experience and being told to swim is a daunting task and can make anyone want to run away and get out of the pool. The amount of players' ships I have jumped onto and seen a level 0 gold hoarder quest active is actually quite sad, and not everyone's going to be nice enough to let them walk away unharmed. And this is a big topic of discussion. Should new players be put into their own server? You can argue that that's what the maiden voyage is, but ultimately that's not a lot of practice. But you have to think big picture. Where does the skill-based matchmaking end? What's stopping people making new accounts and terrorizing these new players? It's not fair to segment new players no matter how hard it may be in the regular world. You have to learn to swim in the deep end. And that's where I think Rare's advertisement is failing them. If people had in their mind that they could possibly be getting into PvP or running into mischievous pirates, then they would be more accepting of this reality, rather than not knowing any of it until one day you come back to your ship and what do you know, it's not there anymore. It's at the bottom of the ocean. I asked one of the game developers what they thought of this concept and received no word about it, so I guess they aren't ready to comment. But on the other hand, I also asked in the Sea of Thieves partner Discord what everyone's ideas were, and without revealing who said what, the general consensus was PvE server bad, as it goes against the grain of the game. The game is intended to be an open world sandbox, full of pirates and player interaction. Whether that interaction is PvP, role-playing, or just saying hello and making a friend from another country is totally random, and every encounter will be different. That's what makes Sea of Thieves great. The infinite possibilities, the millions of different players you can meet, and PvE servers would go directly against that. I don't think people see the whole picture of what PvE servers would do to this game. The fun is in guarding your loot from enemies and trying to escape with your life and fortune. I even asked you guys on YouTube via a poll what you thought of PvE servers, and 57% of you said they would be a good idea. Yet all of the comments on that post were against the idea of them. So I ask that if you are in the 57%, please let me know why you think they would be a good idea. In conclusion, what do we do about this divided community demanding PvE servers, while the other half of the community cries about Reaper's runners? Reaper's Bones representatives running away from a fight even though they are the PvP faction. Well, honestly, I think Sea of Thieves needs a bunch of Reaper's Bones and build rat PvP commendations, such as players killed, player ships sunk, an extension on the emissary flag sold commendations, prestiging these PvP commendations for better rewards, as well as crazy new designs for cosmetic rewards, such as ship curses, ship titles, so when you enter servers, it warns the server of your presence, special cannon engravings of shots fired or masts knocked down, just something which adds to the PvP element. I understand that this addition could create a wave and shift the whole aspect of the game into more of a pirate PvP game for a period of time, but ultimately that's what the game has been in since June 2020. A pirate PvE co-op game where people can PvP, but don't really like to. I believe Captain Falcor has mentioned this in a video, but a different game mode similar to a pirate's life, where you can go to complete tall tales, adventures, and mysteries on your own or with your crew and learn the ropes of the game, could be beneficial for new players, or even story game players, because in the grand scheme of things, you do not need to be in the open world with everyone else in order to complete the tall tales. After all, tall tales are just lore and story-based gameplay, and if players have the intention of only playing the game for the story and not engaging in any other content, then maybe it is fair to put them into their own session where you cannot progress at all. I don't know, I'm not a developer. I just try to create good change within the game and keep everything simple and easy to understand. So as far as I'm aware, I've done my job. Thank you for listening.